Hi everyone. Before we start, please like, subscribe, share, and comment where you watching from. If you walked past her on the streets of 1880s Manchester, you probably wouldn't have looked twice. Mary Ann Britland was quiet, ordinary, and almost painfully unremarkable. A factory worker, a wife, a mother, someone you'd nod to politely and forget 2 steps later. But in 1886, she became something Britain had never seen before. The first woman ever executed at Strangways Prison because she poisoned 3 people she lived with, one after another. And the most chilling part? She didn't kill for rage. She didn't kill for revenge. She killed for convenience. She killed for infatuation. She killed because the opportunity was right there, sitting in a bottle behind the chemist's counter. This is the horrifying, historically true story of Mary Ann Britland, the woman who turned her neighbors into victims, her marriage into a crime scene, and her obsession into murder. Manchester in the 1880s wasn't the modern city we recognize today. It was industrial, smoky, crowded, with row houses lined shoulder to shoulder, chimneys coughing out soot around the clock, and most working-class families surviving paycheck to paycheck. People lived close enough to hear each other argue, close enough to share sugar, gossip, and sometimes secrets. Mary Ann, born Mary Ann Haig in 1855, lived in a neighborhood that looked just like this. She married a man named Thomas Britland, and together they had a daughter named Elizabeth, Lizzie to most people. By all accounts, they were ordinary. Mary Ann took factory and household jobs. Thomas worked long hours. Lizzie went to school. Nothing about their lives hinted that anything was brewing beneath the surface. Until March of 1886, when Mary Ann walked into a chemist's shop and purchased a poison that would start her on one of the darkest crime sprees in Victorian England. In the 1800s, the rules around poison were shockingly relaxed. People bought arsenic, strychnine, and vermin powders the same way we buy cleaning supplies today. All you had to do was sign your name, explain why you needed it, and hand over a few coins. Chemists weren't detectives. If you said it was for rats, that was enough. And on March 22, 1886, that's exactly what Mary Ann Britland did. She walked into a shop and purchased strychnine, claiming she needed it to get rid of rats in her home. The chemist handed it over. He would later testify that nothing seemed odd. She was calm, polite, and even smiled. He had no idea he was handing her a weapon. Only a few days after buying the poison, April 2, 1886, 19-year-old Lizzie Britland suddenly fell violently ill. Witnesses described horrifying symptoms: uncontrollable convulsions, muscle spasms, her body arching off the bed, and intense stabbing pain. All classic signs of strychnine poisoning. Doctors were puzzled, but assumed it was a natural seizure disorder or cholera. Victorian medicine often relied on best guesses, and strychnine poisoning can look similar to several natural causes. Lizzie died that same night. Mary Ann cried. She held her daughter's hand. She played the devastated mother perfectly. And within days, life returned to normal. At least, on the surface. But here's the first chilling detail. A mother had poisoned her own child, and nobody suspected a thing. Barely a month after Lizzie's death, Mary Ann repeated the same pattern. On May 3, 1886, her husband, Thomas Britland, suddenly collapsed after dinner. The symptoms were identical: violent convulsions, stiffening limbs, choking spasms, total paralysis. This time, doctors suspected epilepsy. No one questioned it. Thomas died before sunrise. Neighbors rallied around Mary Ann, dropping off food and offering sympathy. She played the grieving widow flawlessly, crying in public, speaking softly about her tragic bad luck, and leaning on people for emotional support. One neighbor in particular, a man named Thomas Dixon. Now we reach the disturbing heart of the case. Mary Ann wasn't killing for money. She wasn't killing for revenge. She was killing because she was in love with another man. And that man was her neighbor, Thomas Dixon. Thomas was married to a woman named Mary. Yes, two Marys living right next door. Both couples socialized, they shared meals, they trusted each other. But Mary Ann developed a fixation on Thomas Dixon, something between desire and obsession. And she convinced herself that if both their spouses were out of the picture, Thomas would be free. And what did Mary Ann do when she wanted someone out of the picture? She went back to the chemist. She asked for the same poison, and once again, they sold it to her. On May 14, 1886, just 11 days after killing her husband, Mary Ann put her final plan into motion. She visited her neighbor, Mary Dixon, as she often did. Nothing seemed unusual. That evening, Mary Dixon became violently ill. The same horrifying symptoms Lizzie and Thomas had shown before. Within hours, Mary Dixon was dead. But this time, something finally snapped the pattern. Unlike the previous victims, Mary Dixon was known to be healthy and strong. Her sudden death, combined with two recent deaths in the Britland home, finally triggered suspicion. Neighbors whispered. Police took notice. And when they learned that Mary Ann had been present during all three deaths, the investigation began. Police discovered the pattern almost immediately. 3 sudden deaths, all within 6 weeks, all linked to one woman, all with symptoms of poisoning, and all occurring right after Mary Ann purchased poison. When they interviewed the chemists, both remembered her clearly, and both confirmed that she purchased strychnine multiple times. Authorities exhumed the bodies. Tests showed high concentrations of poison in all 3 victims. Mary Ann was arrested on May 18, 1886. At first, she completely denied everything. She cried, prayed, and begged. But investigators soon discovered the motive: her infatuation with her neighbor, Thomas Dixon. She believed that once both their spouses were dead, Thomas would fall in love with her. He later testified in complete shock. He'd never expressed interest, never encouraged her, and never imagined she'd kill anyone for him. Mary Ann Britland's trial began in July 1886, and Victorian courtrooms were packed. Newspapers ran dramatic headlines calling her the female poisoner of Manchester. During the trial, chemists testified about selling her poison. Doctors described the victim's identical symptoms. Neighbors spoke about her fixation on Thomas Dixon. The Dixon family recounted strange moments after their wife or mother died. Police listed her contradictory statements. The case was airtight. The jury didn't take long. Mary Ann was found guilty on July 22, 1886. When the verdict was read, she broke down sobbing and screamed that she was innocent, despite overwhelming evidence. But the most unsettling part came next. She begged the judge to spare her life because she feared the long drop execution method. The judge denied her plea. On August 9, 1886, Mary Ann Britland was taken to Strangways Prison, a facility notorious for harsh conditions. She was the first woman ever executed there. The execution was carried out by famed hangman James Barry. He later wrote that Mary Ann was trembling and needed support just to stand on the trapdoor. Her final reported words were, "I am guilty. I deserve this." The trap was pulled. Mary Ann Britland died instantly. She was 31 years old. 3 lives ended by her hand. Her own life ended by the justice system. 4 families shattered, and 1 chilling legacy left behind. Even today, historians still talk about Mary Ann for several reasons. 1, she was Britain's first female Strangways execution. This alone puts her into the dark chapters of criminal history. 2, her killings happened extremely fast, just 6 weeks. 3. Her victims were all people she loved or lived beside. 4. Her motive was disturbingly simple. She wanted a different life, and poison was the easiest path. 5. She killed without hesitation, and could have continued if she wasn't caught. She wasn't the first poisoner in Britain. She wasn't even the most famous. But she's one of the most chilling. Because Mary Ann Britland didn't look like a killer. She didn't behave like a monster. She behaved like a lonely, desperate woman who believed that if she removed the people in her way, she could finally have the life she'd dreamed of. And when you hear the details, the calmness, the planning, the smooth lies, that's what makes her story so unsettling. She looked ordinary, but she was capable of extraordinary cruelty. So the next time you hear stories of Victorian poisoners, don't just think of the famous names. Remember Mary Ann Britland, the quiet neighbor, the grieving mother, the friend who came over for tea, the woman who smiled politely at the chemist while buying enough poison to wipe out her whole household. Her story is a reminder that evil doesn't always look like a stranger lurking in the dark. Sometimes it looks like someone who lives right next door.